Alright, welcome back to another presentation. This time I will focus on figurative comparison. But before I get into that, think about a time when you felt something really strong. Maybe joy, happiness, anger, sorrow, fear, excitement, etc. Now describe that feeling slash emotion in a unorthodox way, such as my anger was like fireworks going off inside me. So exactly what is figurative comparison? Well, it's a way of describing something by comparing something to it or something else. There are four versions of it. First one up is similes. A simile is a figure of speech that compares two things that are not alike, using words like and as. As an example, he is lazy as a panda. This is an example because, well, for one, it uses the word as. It compares two things that are not alike because obviously the man is not a panda, but they are both lazy. So, and as for the second example, the room was called like a refrigerator. Obviously, a room cannot be a refrigerator since it's a aerial space, but they're being compared because it's cold, and also the word like was used. Metaphors. Metaphors are a figure of speech that allow us to speak about one thing by describing something else. An example of this is she's an early bird to show that she gets up pretty early in the morning, just like birds do. Or he has a heart of gold to show that this person is one of a kind, generous, etc. An analogy is a comparison between two things, typically for the purpose of explanation or to clarify something. As an example, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Someone may appear harmless or someone nice, but they're actually pretty dangerous and probably shouldn't be hanged around. As for the second example, finding that lost pen will be like finding a needle in a haystack, which of course meaning is it could be quite difficult to find a lost pen in this context. Personification, so this is giving human qualities or traits like anger or maybe talking to something that's not human. As an example, Joe felt the bag of chips calling his name. Now, of course, the chips can't talk. If they could, that would be really concerning and raise a lot of questions, but in this context, it's just really about how Joe really wants those bag of chips. As for the second example, the statue stood proudly in the center. Obviously, a statue can't feel emotions, but in this context, it's probably referring to how the statue stands out, how it looks good, and that's why it feels proud. So which of these devices is the most relevant one? Well, it kind of depends. While the reasons they are used kind of overlap each other, some are better to use in different scenarios. As an example, similes are suggested to be used in creative writing, persuasive writing, everyday speech. Now, obviously, similes can be used for different things, but this is just kind of like a basic idea. Moving on. Metaphors should be used in to communicate emotions, persuasions, and make one's writing stand out more. So pretty similar to our similes. A analogy should be suggested to use for explaining concepts that may be a bit difficult in arguments and in everyday speech. Now, personification should be used in creative writing, everyday speech, and highly recommended in poetry and musical lyrics, as they'll stand out a bit more there. So I'm going to focus on similes for the rest of this video, but it's highly recommended to stick around. So similes using famous arguments. Martin Luther King Jr. in his iconic and famous "I Have a Dream" speech, he used one. I quote,
"We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness, like a mighty stream."
Right there, like a mighty stream. So in this context, a mighty stream is like being strong, having willpower, to have resolve. And Winston Churchill also used simile in his speech as well.
To each a fair share of blows, like the blows of a hammer.
So in this context, he's probably referring to how the blow is going to be painful, tough, rough, just like a hammer. Trying to get his idea across. Now here are some examples of similes used in media.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
Tranquil as a forest.
That one was very blunt. He just said it outright. How life is like a box full of chocolates. You might have a somewhat idea of what's going to be in it, chocolates, but you don't know what flavors, types, or even if it's expired or not. So yeah, it can be a bit random, just like life is. Now, as for the second example, and I have not seen this movie in a while, but I believe they're referring to the guy from the beginning of the shot who hit those marks all pretty dang well. And he had a pretty calm look on his face, just like a forest is typically calm, quiet, and free from disturbance. While similes can be useful to get one's point across, this can be applied to all the other figurative comparisons, but it's definitely recommended to avoid using similes and the others when it's cliche, overused, inappropriate, complex, or just doesn't make sense. Some examples: he's as busy as B. That one's pretty cliche. It's not bad. You can definitely get one's point across, but if you're really serious, maybe avoid using that one. Now this one's interesting. He felt like a puppet whose strings have been cut. That's actually pretty dang good for a simile. However, I use this example because I read a book that kept using that line, and each time that simile was used, its impact wasn't as strong as when I read it for the first time. So if you got a really good simile and you're saving it for whatever reason, make sure it counts. Her eyes were like sword strange, deep, dark, and full of mystery. That one's kinda inappropriate because, I mean, it's just weird to be honest, comparing one's eyes to a sword's reins. I found that one online, and I'm not sure what it's meant to be used in. Like, I know I also presumed it was using a romance book, maybe. But for me, at least, it just seems really weird. Like, what was the writer thinking when he wrote that? Bro was not cooking. And as for the complex one, his decision-making process was like navigating a maze blindfold, filled with twists and turns and ultimately leading to a uncertain outcome. That was not so bad, but it kind of falls into the complex category. Honestly, I think whoever wrote that line could maybe could cut out a few lines, made it a bit shorter. What words are used in similes, such like as if, hint. Two of the answers are correct. What word here would make the simile make sense? John is as sneaky as a lion, snake, gorilla, bear.
Yes.
Should similes be used in creative writing, such as when making a book? Yes or no?